When I said, with tears of joy streaming down my face, "Sweetheart, I can't wait for your wedding tomorrow," she froze. Her whole body went rigid, like I just slapped her across the face. Then her fiancé, no, her husband, smirked at me with this cruel little smile and said, "Tomorrow? That was last week, actually. Last week. Last week." The words hit me like a truck barreling down the highway with no brakes. My daughter, my baby girl, the child I'd raised alone after her father died, the girl I'd sacrificed everything for, had gotten married without me, without her mother, without the woman who'd brought her into this world and would have died to keep her safe. A week later, they were on my doorstep, crying and begging me to forgive them. And you know what I said? I looked my daughter straight in the eyes and said, "You already had your wedding without your mother. Now you can have your life without her too." Then I closed the door, and I haven't opened it since. Before we go on, don't forget to subscribe and tell me, what time is it where you're watching from? I need to know I'm not alone in feeling what I'm about to share with you. Let me take you back to the beginning, before everything shattered, before the betrayal that ripped my heart clean out of my chest. It was a Tuesday evening in late spring, the kind of evening where the air smells like jasmine and fresh-cut grass, where the sunset paints everything gold and makes you believe in good things. I was in my kitchen, my sanctuary, preparing dinner for my daughter Sarah and her fiancé, Marcus. They were coming over to finalize the last-minute wedding details. The wedding that was supposed to happen that Saturday. The wedding I'd been planning for, dreaming about, sacrificing for almost 2 years. I had the roast in the oven, her favorite, the one her father used to make on special occasions. I'd ironed her grandmother's lace tablecloth, the one I'd been saving for this exact moment. There were fresh flowers on the table, champagne chilling in the fridge, and the wedding dress. Oh God, the dress, hanging in the spare bedroom, freshly steamed and perfect. I'd spent 3 hours that afternoon making sure every pearl button gleamed. Every bit of tulle lay just right. I stood there in my kitchen, wearing the apron my husband gave me 20 years ago. And I felt whole, proud, like everything I'd endured as a widow, as a single mother, as a woman who'd worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on and food on the table. It had all been worth it, because my baby girl was getting married, and I was going to walk her down that aisle. I was going to be both parents for her on the most important day of her life. I'd saved for 3 years for this wedding. 3 years of overtime shifts at the hospital. 3 years of saying no to vacations and new clothes and anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. I'd sold my mother's jewelry, the jewelry I'd promised myself I'd pass down to Sarah one day, just to make sure she could have the wedding of her dreams, the venue she wanted, the flowers she'd pinned on Pinterest since she was 16, the photographer who cost more than my car payment, $15,000. That's what I'd given her, $15,000 I didn't have, scraped together from the edges of my life, from selling memories and working until my feet bled and my back screamed. But I didn't care, because she was my daughter, my only child, the best thing I'd ever done in this world. I heard their car pull up in the driveway, and my heart started racing with excitement. I checked my reflection in the window, smoothed down my hair, wiped a smudge of flour off my cheek, and practically ran to the door. The moment I opened that door, I knew something was wrong. Sarah wouldn't look at me. My daughter, who used to tell me everything, who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, even as a teenager, wouldn't meet my eyes. She stood there on my porch with her arms wrapped around herself, staring at the ground like it held all the answers to questions I hadn't asked yet. And Marcus had this look on his face, smug, satisfied, like he just won something I didn't even know we were competing for. "Hi, Mom," Sarah whispered, and even her voice sounded different. Guilty, ashamed. "Sweetheart." I pulled her into a hug, but she felt stiff in my arms, resistant. Come in. I've made your favorite. We have so much to go over before Saturday. I was thinking about the seating chart and, actually, we need to talk to you about that." Marcus interrupted, walking past me into my house like he owned it, like he had any right. My stomach dropped. "About the seating chart?" Sarah finally looked at me, and there were tears in her eyes, but not happy tears, not the tears of a bride overwhelmed with joy. These were different, darker. "Mom," she started, then stopped, started again. "Mom, there isn't going to be a wedding on Saturday." The world tilted sideways. "What? Sweetie, what are you talking about? Did something happen? Is everything okay? We can postpone. We already got married," Marcus said flatly, cutting through my panic like a knife. "Last Tuesday, in Sedona, just the two of us." I couldn't breathe, literally couldn't pull air into my lungs. The words bounced around in my skull, but refused to make sense. Already married. Last Tuesday. Just the two of us. "What?" It came out as a whisper, barely a sound at all. Sarah was crying now, really crying, but she still wouldn't look at me. "We wanted something private, Mom. Something just for us. Something intimate. Intimate." I repeated the word, like it was in a foreign language. "You wanted something intimate. So you took the $15,000 I gave you for your wedding, the money I worked myself to the bone for, the money I got from selling my mother's jewelry, and you, what? You just went and got married without me? We used some of it for the honeymoon," Marcus said, and I swear to God, there was pride in his voice. Pride. "Spent a week in Bali. It was incredible. Sarah deserved something special after all the stress of wedding planning. The stress of wedding planning. The stress I had taken on, trying to make everything perfect for her. You took my money," I said slowly, my voice shaking with an emotion I couldn't even name yet. "You took the money I gave you for a wedding I was supposed to be part of, and you spent it on a honeymoon, after a wedding, that you had, without me. Mom, please understand." Sarah reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Understand? Understand what, Sarah? That you couldn't be bothered to invite your own mother to your wedding? That the woman who raised you alone, who worked 2 jobs to give you everything, who stayed up all night when you were sick, who taught you to read and helped you with homework and drove you to soccer practice and held you when boys broke your heart, that woman wasn't important enough to watch you get married? It wasn't like that," she sobbed. "Then what was it like? Tell me what it was like." I was screaming now, something I'd never done before. Never. I'd raised my daughter with patience and gentleness, even when things were impossibly hard. But this deserved screaming. We wanted to start our marriage on our own terms," Marcus said, putting his arm around Sarah like he was protecting her. From me, like I was the threat, without all the family drama and expectations. It was our decision. Your decision, I repeated numbly. Your decision to lie to me, to steal from me, to break my heart. We didn't steal, Sarah started. Yes, you did. I cut her off, my voice razor sharp. You asked me for money for a wedding, knowing damn well that wedding wasn't going to happen. You looked me in the eyes and let me plan and prepare and sacrifice, knowing the whole time you'd already gotten married behind my back. That's theft, Sarah. That's betrayal. The roast in the oven started to burn. I could smell it, acrid and bitter, just like the taste in my mouth. We thought you'd understand eventually, Sarah whispered. Get out. The words came from somewhere deep and cold inside me. Somewhere I didn't know existed until that moment. Mom, get out of my house, now. They left, Sarah crying, Marcus looking annoyed, like I was being unreasonable, like I was the problem. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by the wedding preparations for a wedding that had already happened, and I felt something inside me die. Not all at once, not like when my husband died, sudden and catastrophic. This was slower, quieter, like watching a light fade out one flicker at a time until there's nothing left but darkness. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's face as a little girl, 3 years old, holding my hand on her first day of preschool. 7, crying because she missed her daddy. 12, rolling her eyes at me, but still letting me hug her goodnight. 16, trying on prom dresses and asking if she looked pretty. 23, telling me she was engaged and that I was going to help her plan the wedding of her dreams. All lies, apparently. Or maybe not lies, exactly. Maybe she'd meant it at the time. Maybe something changed. Maybe Marcus changed her. Maybe I didn't know my daughter as well as I thought I did. That hurt worst of all. The not knowing. By the time the sun came up, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I couldn't drink and a decision crystallizing in my mind, like ice forming over a winter pond. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for explanations or apologies or understanding. I was going to do what I should have done years ago. I was going to set boundaries, real ones, the kind that protect you from people who claim to love you while treating you like garbage. I opened my laptop and started going through my finances. Every bank account, every shared credit card, every automatic payment. Sarah was still on several of them. A holdover from college, when I'd wanted to make sure she always had access to emergency funds. One by one, I removed her, closed the accounts we shared, changed passwords, cut every financial cord that tied us together. Then I pulled out the folder I'd kept of all her expenses over the years. I'm an organized person, comes from working in hospital administration, and I'd kept meticulous records, not because I ever planned to hold it over her head, but because that's just how I am. I document things. The numbers were staggering when I added them up. 4 years of college tuition, $90,000. Rent for her apartment during and after college, another $36,000. Her car, which I'd bought outright, $15,000. Medical bills, phone bills, car insurance, credit card debt I'd paid off for her, the security deposit on the apartment she shared with Marcus before they got married. It went on and on and on. $263,000, over $250,000 I'd given my daughter over the years, not including the normal costs of raising a child. Money I'd earned, working double shifts in sacrificing every luxury, money I'd given freely, out of love, never expecting anything in return except what? Respect, honesty, the basic decency of being included in her wedding. Apparently, that was too much to ask. I sat there staring at those numbers, and something cold and hard settled into my chest. Not anger, not yet. Something worse. Clarity. My daughter had become someone I didn't recognize. Someone entitled. Someone who took and took and took without ever thinking about the cost. And I'd let her. I'd enabled it by always saying yes, always giving more, always putting her needs above my own. Well, not anymore. I spent that day canceling everything. The wedding venue. I'd already paid the deposit, but I got a partial refund since we were technically canceling due to unforeseen circumstances. The florist, the photographer, the caterer. Each phone call was humiliating. Each person asked why, and I had to tell them. The bride got married without telling anyone. Some were sympathetic, some were confused. One, the photographer, actually laughed and said she'd seen some family drama in her career, but never that. I didn't cry during any of it. I was beyond crying. That evening, I drove to my lawyer's office. Janet had been my friend for 20 years. Since before Sarah was born, she took one look at my face and didn't even ask questions, just pulled out the paperwork. I want to update my will, I told her, and I want to know what my options are regarding the money I gave Sarah. Janet nodded slowly. Okay, walk me through what happened. So I did, every painful detail. And when I was done, Janet sat back in her chair and looked at me with something between pity and respect. Legally, the money you gave her was a gift, she said gently. Unless you have documentation stating it was a loan, there's no way to force repayment. My heart sank. But, she continued, we can absolutely update your will, and we can create a paper trail documenting everything you've given her, just in case things escalate and you need proof of your financial support. It won't get your money back, but it will protect you going forward. Do it, I said. All of it. We worked for 3 hours, redrafting my will, documenting every expense, creating a clear financial separation between me and my daughter. When we were done, Sarah was no longer my primary beneficiary. Instead, everything would go to a scholarship fund for young women from single-parent households, women who actually appreciated sacrifice, who understood the value of what they were given. Are you sure about this? Janet asked as I signed the final document. This is permanent, Elena. This is burning a bridge. She burned it first, I said quietly. I'm just acknowledging the fire. For 2 days, I heard nothing from Sarah. No calls, no texts, no apologies, nothing. And honestly, it was a relief. The silence gave me space to grieve, to process, to start imagining what my life might look like without constantly revolving around her needs and wants. On the 3rd day, I got a notification that Sarah had posted something on Facebook. Against my better judgment, I clicked on it. The post was long, one of those emotional, manipulative essays that people write when they want sympathy without telling the whole truth. The headline made my blood boil. When your parent can't accept your happiness. She wrote about how she'd made the difficult decision to have a private wedding because she wanted to start her marriage authentically without family pressure and unrealistic expectations. She wrote about how I'd disowned her for choosing love over tradition. She wrote about how heartbroken she was that her own mother couldn't support her choices. Not once, not once, did she mention the $15,000. Not once did she mention the years of financial support, the sacrifices, the fact that she'd lied to my face while taking my money. The comments were what destroyed me. Dozens of people, her friends, some of my neighbors, people from our church, offering sympathy, calling me controlling, saying she was better off without me, that she deserved happiness, that sometimes you have to set boundaries with toxic parents. Toxic. They called me toxic. I wanted to scream. I wanted to comment and tell them all the truth, expose every lie, defend myself. But I didn't, because that's what Sarah wanted. She wanted me to look crazy, to lash out, to prove that I was the villain in her story. Instead, I took screenshots. Every comment, every like, every share. I saved all of it. Documentation. Then I called Janet. I need you to help me tell my side of the story, I said. Properly, publicly, with evidence. Are you absolutely sure? Janet asked. Once you do this, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. She threw the first punch. I'm just going to make sure people know where the bruises really came from. It took a week to prepare. Janet helped me organize everything. Bank statements showing the transfers to Sarah, receipts for tuition payments, documentation of every bill I'd paid on her behalf, screenshots of our text conversations where she'd thanked me for the wedding money and discussed venue options, all dated after she'd already gotten married. The evidence was damning, irrefutable, a clear pattern of deception and financial manipulation. Then I got the call that changed everything. The local Women's Community Center, a place I'd volunteered at for years, was hosting an event about financial abuse within families. They wanted stories, real stories from real women who'd been taken advantage of by people they trusted. Would you be willing to speak? The organizer, Patricia, asked me. I know it's personal, but your story, Elena, other mothers need to hear it. Other parents need to know they're not alone. I said yes without hesitation. The event was on a Saturday afternoon. 200 women packed into the community center, ranging from college age to their 80s, mothers and daughters and sisters and friends, women who'd been hurt, women who needed to hear they weren't crazy for feeling betrayed. When it was my turn to speak, I walked up to that podium with my evidence folder and my laptop, and I told the truth. I started with the love, how much I'd adored being Sarah's mother, how proud I'd been of the woman I thought she was becoming, how every sacrifice had felt worth it because I was investing in her future. Then I told them about the wedding, about the betrayal, about discovering she'd taken my money under false pretenses. I want to be clear, I said, my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking. This isn't about the money itself. If Sarah had come to me and said, Mom, Marcus and I want to elope, but we'd love your help with a honeymoon, I would have said yes. I would have been disappointed about missing the wedding, but I would have understood. I would have respected her honesty. I clicked to the first slide. A bank statement showing the $15,000 transfer. But that's not what happened. She asked for money for a wedding she'd already had. She let me plan and prepare and sacrifice, knowing it was all a lie. And then, when I confronted her about it, she painted me as the villain on social media. I showed them Sarah's Facebook post. Then I showed them my evidence. Screenshot after screenshot of texts where she'd discussed wedding details with me days after she was already married. Messages where she'd thanked me for my generosity and promised to make me proud. The room was dead silent. I'm not telling you this story to make you hate my daughter, I continued, my voice cracking for the first time. I'm telling you because I need you to understand something I'm only just learning myself. Loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. Being someone's mother doesn't mean you have to accept being treated like garbage. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is close the door and walk away. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. Women were crying. Several came up afterward to share their own stories. Daughters who'd stolen from them, sons who'd manipulated them, family members who'd taken advantage of their love and generosity. But the moment I'll never forget was when I saw Sarah standing in the back of the room. She must have heard about the event somehow, maybe from a mutual friend, maybe she'd seen it advertised. She was there with Marcus, and her face was pale as a ghost. She'd heard everything, seen all the evidence, watched her carefully constructed narrative crumble in front of 200 witnesses. Our eyes met across that crowded room, and for a second, just a second, I saw my little girl again. Scared, ashamed, caught. Then Marcus grabbed her arm and pulled her out the door. That night, my phone exploded. Texts, calls, voicemails. Some from Sarah's friends apologizing for believing her lies. Some from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, offering support. A few cruel messages from people who thought I was vindictive for exposing her publicly. I ignored all of it, turned my phone off, made myself a cup of tea, sat on my back porch, and watched the stars come out. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, maybe years, I felt like I could breathe. 7 days after the community center event, there was a knock on my door. It was early morning, barely 7. I was in my pajamas, hair uncombed, no makeup. I'd been working on a painting, something I hadn't had time for in years. The house was quiet, peaceful, mine. The knock came again, insistent. I looked through the peephole and felt my heart clench. Sarah and Marcus, standing on my porch, both of them looking exhausted and desperate. Part of me wanted to pretend I wasn't home, to hide like a coward until they gave up and left. But I'd spent too many years being a coward, accepting less than I deserved, swallowing pain to keep the peace. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. Stood in the doorway, like a barrier between my peaceful life and the chaos they represented. "Mom," Sarah said immediately, her voice breaking. "Mom, please, we need to talk to you." "There's nothing to talk about," I said calmly. "You made your choices. I made mine. We made a mistake." Sarah was crying now, mascara running down her face. "A huge mistake. We were selfish and stupid, and we're so sorry. Please, Mom, please forgive us." Marcus stepped forward. "Mrs. Patterson, we'll pay you back, every penny. We'll set up a payment plan. With what money?" I asked coldly. "The money you spent in Bali. The money you used to start your authentic marriage. We'll figure it out," Sarah pleaded. "We'll get second jobs. Mom, please. You're my mother. You can't just cut me out of your life like this." And there it was, the manipulation I'd fallen for 1,000 times before. "You're my mother," as if biology obligated me to accept abuse, as if carrying her for 9 months meant I had to carry her bad decisions for the rest of my life. "You cut me out first," I said quietly. "When you planned that wedding behind my back. When you took my money, knowing you'd already gotten married. When you posted lies about me on Facebook to make yourself look like the victim. You cut me out, Sarah. You just didn't expect me to stay gone. I was scared," she sobbed. "I was scared you'd be disappointed, that you'd try to control everything, that the wedding wouldn't be about us. So, instead of having an honest conversation with me, you decided to lie and steal?" My voice was rising now, anger bleeding through the calm facade. "Instead of treating me like an adult who deserved respect, you treated me like an ATM machine with no feelings. We'll make it right," Marcus said desperately. "Just tell us what we need to do." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, saw the entitlement she'd learned, the manipulation she'd perfected, the complete lack of accountability, and I saw my own role in creating that, by always saying yes, by always fixing her problems, by never letting her face real consequences. Well, consequences had arrived. Better late than never. "What you need to do," I said slowly, clearly, "is learn to stand on your own 2 feet. You wanted a marriage without me? You've got one. You wanted to make your own decisions. Make them. But don't come running back to Mommy when those decisions blow up in your face. I'm not your safety net anymore." "You're my mother," Sarah screamed. "You're supposed to love me, no matter what." "I do love you," I said, and I meant it. God help me, I meant it. But I love myself too, and I'm not going to light myself on fire to keep you warm anymore. You burned that bridge when you chose to lie to me, when you chose Marcus over honesty, when you chose your comfort over my dignity. So that's it?" Marcus said bitterly. "You're just going to abandon your own daughter?" "I'm not abandoning anyone," I replied. "I'm just refusing to be used anymore. There's a difference." Sarah was hyperventilating now, gasping between sobs. "Please, Mom. Please don't do this. I need you. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And God, that hurt. Hearing those words, I waited weeks to hear, knowing they changed nothing. Because sorry doesn't unbreak trust. Sorry doesn't give me back the joy of watching my daughter get married. Sorry doesn't erase the humiliation of finding out I'd been lied to, used, discarded. Sorry was just a word, and words were what got us into this mess in the first place. "I hope you have a good life, Sarah," I said softly. "I really do. I hope your marriage is everything you wanted it to be. I hope you and Marcus are happy together. But you're going to do it without me bankrolling your dreams, without me sacrificing my peace, without me pretending everything's okay when it's not. Mom, goodbye, Sarah." I closed the door, locked it, leaned against it with my eyes shut tight, listening to her sob on the other side, listening to Marcus try to comfort her, telling her I'd come around eventually, that I was just being dramatic. They stood there for maybe 10 minutes. Then I heard their footsteps retreating, car doors slamming, engine starting, driving away, and I stood there in my quiet house, in my peaceful space, and I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't break down. I just breathed. It's been 3 months now since that morning on my doorstep. 3 months of silence from Sarah. 3 months of slowly rebuilding a life I didn't know I'd lost. I painted my kitchen yellow, bright, happy yellow, that makes me smile every morning. I joined a book club. I started taking watercolor classes on Tuesday evenings. I'm dating a kind man I met at the hardware store. Someone with laugh lines around his eyes and no expectations of who I should be. I wake up every morning without the weight of someone else's needs crushing my chest. I make coffee just the way I like it. I watch the sunrise without checking my phone for crisis texts that need immediate attention. I'm happy, actually, genuinely happy, for the first time in years. Does part of me still ache for my daughter? Of course. Every single day. I see something funny and want to text her. I pass the coffee shop we used to go to and feel that familiar pang. At night, sometimes, I lie awake and wonder if I'm wrong, if I'm too harsh, if I should have forgiven her. But then, I remember standing in my kitchen, surrounded by wedding preparations for a wedding that had already happened. I remember the smirk on Marcus's face. I remember Sarah's Facebook post calling me toxic. I remember years and years of putting her first, always her first, until there was nothing left of me. And I know I made the right choice, because forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it means acknowledging what happened, releasing the anger, and moving forward without the person who hurt you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for them, is to let them go. I didn't raise my daughter to be perfect. I raised her to be honest, to be kind, to understand that actions have consequences. Somewhere along the way, those lessons didn't stick. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe it's hers. Maybe it's both of ours. But I can't fix it. I can't make her into someone she's not. All I can do is protect myself from becoming someone I'm not, someone bitter and resentful and empty from giving everything away. And so I choose peace instead. Peace over reconciliation. Peace over false forgiveness. Peace over the exhausting work of trying to maintain a relationship with someone who doesn't respect me. She knows where I am if she ever truly changes, if she ever does the work to understand why what she did was wrong, if she ever becomes someone capable of real accountability instead of performative apologies. But I'm not holding my breath, and I'm not putting my life on hold anymore. I'm 63 years old. I've spent 40 years putting everyone else first. Maybe, just maybe, it's my turn now. If this story touched you, if you felt something raw and real and painful in these words, then you understand. You understand that loving someone and setting boundaries aren't opposites. You understand that being a mother doesn't mean being a martyr. You understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save yourself. Would you have forgiven her? Would you have opened that door and let her back in? Or would you have done what I did, chosen yourself for once? I don't know if there's a right answer. I just know what was right for me, and I'm finally at peace with that. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. I thought closing that door 3 months ago would be the final chapter, the clean break, the period at the end of a very painful sentence. But life doesn't work that way, does it? Life keeps happening, keeps throwing curveballs, keeps testing whether you really meant what you said when you drew those boundaries in the sand. It was a Thursday afternoon in late August when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I'd gotten pretty good at ignoring unknown calls, protecting my peace like it was made of glass, but something made me pick up. Intuition, maybe, or just bad timing. Mrs. Patterson? A woman's voice, professional but strained. This is Rebecca Chen from Mercy General Hospital. I'm calling about your daughter, Sarah Mitchell. My heart stopped. completely stopped. All that anger, all those boundaries, all that hard-won peace, gone in an instant, replaced by pure maternal terror. What happened? Is she okay? Was there an accident? She's stable, Rebecca said quickly, and I could breathe again. But she was admitted this morning with severe dehydration and malnutrition. We're running tests, but, Mrs. Patterson, we found your name listed as her emergency contact. Are you able to come to the hospital? I should have said no. I should have told them to call Marcus, her husband, the man she chose over honesty. I should have protected the boundaries I'd worked so hard to build. But she was my daughter, and she was in the hospital. And despite everything, God help me, despite everything, I still loved her. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I heard myself say. The drive to the hospital was surreal. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My mind was racing through every terrible possibility. Cancer, kidney failure, some mysterious illness that would make me regret every harsh word I'd said. But underneath the fear was something else, something darker, suspicion, because Sarah had always been good at creating crises when she needed something. A mysterious illness before a big exam, a sudden emergency right when I was about to say no to something she wanted. Drama timed perfectly to manipulate my emotions. Was I a terrible mother for thinking that? For wondering if this was real or just another performance? I didn't know anymore. That's what betrayal does. It makes you doubt everything, even the things that should be simple, even your own daughter's pain. I parked in the hospital lot and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, trying to prepare myself, trying to remember that going into this building didn't mean I was erasing the last 3 months, didn't mean I was accepting what she'd done. It just meant I was a decent human being responding to a medical emergency. That's what I told myself, anyway. Rebecca Chen met me at the nurses' station on the 4th floor. She was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with kind eyes and tired shoulders that told me she'd seen too much suffering for someone her age. Mrs. Patterson, thank you for coming, she said, shaking my hand. Before you see Sarah, I need to ask you some questions. When was the last time you spoke to your daughter? 3 months ago, I said. We're estranged. Understanding flickered across her face. She'd heard that story before, probably dozens of times. Families broken in ways that don't show up on X-rays. I see. Are you aware of any history of eating disorders, depression, anxiety? My chest tightened. Not that I know of, but like I said, we haven't spoken in months. I don't know what's been going on in her life. Rebecca nodded, making notes on her tablet. She's severely malnourished, Mrs. Patterson. Her blood work shows she's been under-eating for weeks, possibly months. She's also dehydrated, anemic, and showing signs of extreme stress. Physically, there's nothing acutely wrong with her. No disease, no infection, but something has been causing her to neglect her basic care. Where's her husband? I asked, and I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. Marcus, where is he? Rebecca's expression shifted, became more guarded. He brought her in this morning, but when we asked him to stay for intake questions, he said he had to get to work. He left before we could get a full medical history. Of course he did. Of course, Marcus left. Because that's who Marcus was. Someone who was there for the good times, the Bali honeymoons and the private weddings, but disappeared when things got hard. "Can I see her?" I asked. "Room 412. But Mrs. Patterson, she's very fragile right now, emotionally and physically. Please be gentle." I wanted to laugh at that. Gentle. I'd been gentle my entire life, gentle and giving and sacrificing. And where had it gotten me? A daughter who lied to my face, and a son-in-law who abandoned her at a hospital. But I nodded and walked toward room 412, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Sarah looked tiny in that hospital bed. That was my first thought when I pushed open the door. My tall, confident daughter looked like a child again, swallowed up by white sheets and medical equipment. She had an IV in her arm, monitors beeping softly, and her face, God, her face was so pale, so drawn, with dark circles under her eyes that looked like bruises. She was asleep, or pretending to be. I couldn't tell. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, frozen between the urge to run to her and the urge to run away. 3 months of healing, 3 months of building a life without her, 3 months of protecting my peace. And here I was, right back where I started, scared, angry, heartbroken. "Mom?" Her voice was small, scratchy, like she'd been crying for hours. "I'm here," I said, and I hated how automatic it was, how easily I slipped back into being the mother who showed up, who fixed things, who put her own pain aside. Sarah's eyes opened, and they were full of tears. "You came. The hospital called. They said you were sick. I didn't think you'd come. After everything." I pulled a chair over to her bedside, but didn't sit down. Kept my distance, kept my armor on. "What's going on, Sarah? What happened to you?" She looked away, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Everything fell apart, Mom. Everything. Where's Marcus?" Her face crumpled. "He left. He dropped me off and left. Said he couldn't deal with this right now, that I was being dramatic, that I just needed to eat something and I'd be fine." Rage flooded through me. Pure, hot rage at this man who'd taken my daughter from me, who'd convinced her to betray me, and then abandoned her the moment she needed him. "What do you mean everything fell apart?" I asked, my voice harder than I intended. Sarah was sobbing now, struggling to breathe between words. "The marriage. It's not what I thought it would be. Marcus is. He's not who I thought he was. He's controlling and mean, and Mom, I made such a huge mistake." Part of me, the hurt, angry part, wanted to say, "I told you so." Wanted to list all the red flags I'd seen in Marcus, all the warnings I'd swallowed to keep the peace. Wanted to make her hurt the way she'd hurt me. But she already looked broken, completely shattered. And despite everything, despite all the pain and betrayal, she was still my baby girl, lying in a hospital bed. "Tell me what's been happening," I said quietly, finally sitting down. All of it. The story came out in pieces, between sobs and long silences, where Sarah struggled to find words for things she'd been hiding for months. After the wedding, the real wedding, the one without me, things had been good for maybe 2 weeks. But then Marcus started changing. Got more critical, more demanding. Wanted to know where she was every minute. Got angry when she wanted to see friends. Made her quit her job because he said it was unnecessary, since he made enough money for both of them. "He said I should focus on being a good wife," Sarah whispered, "that my career was just a distraction from our marriage. And I believed him, Mom. I thought that's what marriage was supposed to be. Sacrifice. Putting your partner first. I felt sick because I'd modeled that for her, hadn't I? Always putting others first, always sacrificing, always making myself smaller to make room for other people's needs. And she'd learned it. She'd learned it and married someone who would exploit it. The money ran out fast, she continued. The $15,000. She choked on the words, couldn't meet my eyes. It was gone in a month. The wedding in Sedona, the honeymoon, a new car Marcus wanted, and then we had nothing. And he blamed me, said I'd been wasteful, irresponsible, said if I'd just had a normal wedding like everyone else, we'd have gotten gifts to offset the costs. The irony of that would have been funny if it wasn't so tragic. He'd convinced her to have the private wedding, spent my money like water, and then blamed her for the financial consequences. He started monitoring everything I ate, Sarah said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Said I was gaining weight, that I needed to be more attractive if I wanted to keep him interested. Started controlling the grocery shopping, the meal planning. Would get angry if I ate between meals. Called me greedy, lazy. Said I was nothing like his mother, who was thin, imperfect, and knew how to take care of a man. My hands clenched into fists. I wanted to find Marcus and make him feel every ounce of pain he'd inflicted on my daughter. I tried to call you so many times, Sarah sobbed. I'd pick up the phone and start dialing, and then I'd remember everything I did to you, the wedding, the money, the Facebook post, and I couldn't. I was so ashamed, Mom, so ashamed of what I'd become, what I'd done to you, what I'd let him turn me into. Why didn't you leave him? I asked, even though I knew the answer. I'd worked with enough abuse survivors at the hospital to understand the psychology, but I needed to hear it from her. Because I deserved it, Sarah said simply. That's what I thought. I'd been so horrible to you, lied to you, stolen from you. I thought this was my punishment, my karma, and Marcus said, he said no one else would ever want me after what I'd done, that you'd never forgive me, that I'd burned every bridge, and he was all I had left. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and her eyes were full of such pain, such desperate hope. Was he right, Mom? Did I ruin everything forever? Is there any way back from this? I sat there in that sterile hospital room, looking at my broken daughter, and I felt something crack open inside me. Not the walls I'd built. Those stayed intact, but something deeper, something that had been frozen for 3 months. Compassion, maybe, or just the recognition that hurt people, and my daughter had been hurting long before she hurt me. Sarah, I said carefully, what you did to me was wrong, deeply, unforgivably wrong. You lied, you stole. You tried to make me look like the villain when I was the victim. Those are facts, and they don't change just because you're suffering now. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. But, I continued, and watched hope flicker in her eyes, you don't deserve to be abused. No one deserves that. Not even people who've made terrible mistakes. I don't know how to leave him, Sarah whispered. I have no money, no job, nowhere to go. Everyone thinks we're this perfect couple. His family, our friends. If I leave, I'll have to explain why. And then everyone will know what a failure I am. You're not a failure for leaving an abusive marriage, I said firmly. You'd be brave. You'd be smart. You'd be breaking a cycle. But I have nothing, Mom. Nothing. I can't even afford an apartment deposit. I can't. She broke down completely, her whole body shaking with sobs, And here it was, the moment I'd been dreading, the moment where she needed me, really needed me, and I had to decide whether to help or maintain my boundaries, because helping her now wasn't like the last 25 years. This wasn't enabling her entitlement or cushioning her from normal consequences. This was potentially saving her life, but it also meant opening a door I'd worked so hard to close. It meant risking my peace, my healing, my carefully reconstructed life. Sarah, I said slowly, I need you to understand something. If I help you, and that's still an if, things will be different this time. Very different. I'm not the same person I was 3 months ago. I'm not your safety net who says yes to everything and asks for nothing in return. I have boundaries now. I have limits. I have expectations. And if you cross them again, I'm gone. Permanently. No third chances. No more forgiveness. Just gone. Do you understand? She nodded, frantically. Yes, I understand. I'll do anything, Mom. Anything. Please, I can't go back to him. I can't. I took a deep breath, let it out slowly, made a decision I hoped I wouldn't regret. When you're released from the hospital, you can stay with me, temporarily, while you get back on your feet. But there are conditions. Anything, she whispered. You see a therapist, non-negotiable. You get a job within 1 month. Any job. I don't care if it's retail or waitressing or anything else. You pay me rent once you're working. Not market rate, but something. Enough to start rebuilding your sense of responsibility. You attend a support group for abuse survivors. You cooperate with whatever legal steps are necessary to separate from Marcus safely. And most importantly, I leaned forward, made sure she was looking me in the eyes. Most importantly, you never ever lie to me again. About anything, big or small. One lie, and you're out. Immediately. No discussion. I promise, Sarah said, gripping my hand like a lifeline. I promise, Mom. I'll do all of it. I'll prove to you that I can change. That I'm not the person I became. We'll see, I said, and I meant it. Because I'd heard promises before. I'd heard apologies and declarations of change. Words were easy. Actions were what mattered. Does this mean you forgive me? Sarah asked tentatively. I pulled my hand back gently, but firmly. No, I said honestly. Forgiveness isn't something I can turn on like a switch just because you need it. You're my daughter, and I love you, and I'm not going to let you stay in an abusive marriage if I can help it. But forgiveness, trust, that relationship we used to have, those are earned back slowly, over time, through consistent action. If ever. She flinched like I'd slapped her, but she nodded. I understand. Good. Now get some rest. I'll talk to the hospital about discharge procedures and make some calls. We have a lot to figure out. I stood to leave, and Sarah's voice stopped me at the door. Mom, thank you for coming, for not just leaving me here. I looked back at her, this stranger wearing my daughter's face, this broken woman who'd once been my whole world. You're welcome, I said quietly. But Sarah, this is the last time I rescue you. After this, you learn to rescue yourself. The next few days were exhausting in ways I hadn't anticipated. Not physically, though coordinating with doctors and lawyers and Marcus took energy, but emotionally. Every conversation with Sarah, every small step forward, required me to maintain my boundaries while still being present. It was like walking a tightrope without a net. Marcus showed up at the hospital on day 2, and I was there when he arrived. watched his face go from confident to confused to angry when he saw me sitting in Sarah's room like a guardian. "What's she doing here?" he asked Sarah, not even acknowledging me directly. "My mom is helping me with discharge planning," Sarah said, and I was proud of how steady her voice was. "Your mom?" Marcus laughed, mean and sharp. "The mom you said was controlling and toxic? The one you said you were better off without? The mom who actually showed up when I was sick?" Sarah replied quietly. "Unlike my husband." His face darkened. "I had to work, Sarah. Someone has to pay the bills since you can't seem to hold down a job." "She had a job until you made her quit," I interjected, my voice ice cold. Marcus finally looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the exact moment he realized I wasn't going to be intimidated, that I knew exactly what he was.